For today, I've got a yoga block as part of the toolkit. If you don't have that, but with some of the other classes we do, you've got the roll, so a rolled up mat or a rolled up towel, preferably taped as it will keep its shape better. Then have that. We'll be using them interchangeably throughout the class. Choose a comfortable seated position. That might be kneeling, it might be sitting on a block. But ideally, I want you to really focus on the positioning of your pelvis. Is it toppling backwards into a bit of a curled under position? If so, can you change that so that you are sitting up, feeling like you're more upright? Maybe a kneeling position would feel preferable for that, depending on how the knees are. Close your eyes and start to deepen your breath. So with this slightly longer class, I usually assume a little bit more knowledge in advance, but also a slightly different level of stamina. And so when we reach any of the challenging parts of this class, and that can be pretty much any time, if you're newer, you might find you start hitting your challenge at about 60 minutes in because it's 30 minutes to go longer than you would normally do. Maybe that's the challenge. Cut yourself some slack in regards to that and pace yourself accordingly. So if you're newer to this type of class, just let's see how we go. Intermediates, these longer classes allow us to go a little bit deeper, to take some of the elements of the practice and unpack them over a slightly longer period of time. And it doesn't mean necessarily that it's going to be harder. So yeah, I'm assuming that you'll know roughly what a sun salutation is. And if I say lunge, you don't need to spend 20 minutes working out what lunge is. I'm going to make those assumptions. And that lets us get away from some of the tenuous details of the pose and going a little bit further than that. So one of the first things to really dial up is deep breathing. And hopefully you know how to do that. So that engagement in the throat, inhaling for 5, exhaling for 6. This type of breathing will work really well during a class. Now, all yoga practice, at least a lot of practice based on yoga philosophy is working with this idea of the yogic path. So the 8-limbed path. And asana and pranayama make up like part 3 and 4. So there's 2 bits before that, and that's all the stuff that we are cueing you on about how you are working honestly with your practice. How you are not trying to covet the pose of another, or even my own pose. It is looking at your relationship with yourself, the way that you treat yourself, speak to yourself, and modify poses when looking at it from a physical practice point of view. And that part is the most fragile. As we get later and later, things are a little bit more robust, they're harder to disturb, but the easiest ones to misplace are the ways that we interact with ourselves and our environment, our immediate environment. So with your eyes closed, get really attentive on how your body feels. What were the impulses that brought you to your mat today? Is there something you're looking to get out of today's practice? And if the answer is yes to that, is it realistic? Or is it something being driven by some more shadowy aspect? And when working with the 8-limbed path, the way that I was taught it by my second teacher, not my first teacher, because we had problems. My second teacher was that if the final step is enlightenment, treat that as being freed from a tower that has no door, but only a window at the top. And so the first limb, how we can start to plan our escape, is you send a little beetle creeping up the wall with a little silk thread attached to it. So it's the lightest and most delicate. And once it gets to the top, you tie the end of that silk thread to a linen thread, and gradually getting thicker and thicker until you get to a rope that you can climb down from. But always the first bit that goes up is incredibly fragile. So as you work with yourself, yes, you might be achieving some success in the pose, but if it's met by a really toxic personal environment, can you do something about that? And know that no amount of asana mastery is going to matter if the other stuff is tainted in that way. There we go, my rant. Bring the soles of the feet into Baddha Konasana. So the soles of the feet together, knees wide. If your hips feel a little bit tighter in Baddha Konasana, go ahead and take the feet further forward so you're a bit more spacious. Use your fingertips behind you. Inhale, lift the chest, aiming to sit tall. Slightly more flexible day, you're welcome to come forwards into a Baddha Konasana forward bend to your comfort level. So maybe forward bends are a bit more easy to access for you at the start of your practice. Your pranayama during this time is sitali. To do sitali, you're either curling the tongue and inhaling as if you're inhaling through a straw, or pursing the lips and inhaling through pursed lips so you get that really controlled flow of air on the inhale, closing the mouth and then exhaling through the nose with ujjayi. It sounds and looks like this. Obviously a longer inhale and then the ujjayi exhale as you have been doing. This is a really great one for if your head feels really busy to bring yourself in, to cool off a little bit. So we're not coming into this practice too hot and raggedy. So either use your hands behind you or come into a bit of a Baddha Konasana forward bend. If you're in the forward bend, lift the skull so it feels like it's in line with the rest of your back and tuck the chin. Exhale everything out through the mouth. Curl the tongue or purse the lips and inhale until full. Once you're full, close the mouth. Do a long and thorough ujjayi exhale. Do 3 more rounds. As you do this, go ahead and close your eyes, bringing your attention inwards, but also not being too attached to staring at a floor or staring at the wall or staring at the screen. And I call on those of you that have developed your knowledge and understanding over time, any time that you can visually detach from the screen, go ahead and do it. It would be a really useful way, I think, to maintain a healthy balance doing classes online versus in person. When you're finished with those 3 additional rounds, then bring yourself up out of the Baddha Konasana. I want you to do a little bit of a rating in your mind of how the hips and the lower back were feeling as you were doing this movement so that we can track a little bit as we start to ease things up a wee bit. So take your feet so they are flat to the floor, legs are bent about 90 degrees. I'm doing this side on my mat just for padding, so you might want to do the same to see how you feel. Take the feet out to about 45 degrees each, so 90 degrees between the legs, but also 90 degrees between the upper and the lower leg. Hands behind are assisting you to lift the chest up. Alternatively, if you're able to be up without any collapse in the lower spine, you're welcome to do this hands free, which will give you a little bit more engagement through your core. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, send both knees over to the right. Turn the chest towards the right and press down through your legs. Polish up the angles, so you're getting this pretty much at 90-degree angles. Inhale, bring the knees up through center. Feet ideally aren't sliding around all over the place. Exhale, send the legs to the left. Turning the chest around to the left. So we're warming up the hip joints with a bit of turning in and turning out. Inhale, bring the knees up through center. Lift the ribs. Exhale, send the knees to the right. Inhale, bring the knees up through center. Exhale, send the legs over to the left. So we're just moving a breath per movement. Inhale, knees through center. Exhale, send the knees to the right and pause. Take the hands either side of that right thigh. Press down through the muscles and the bones of your right leg so you feel the buttock muscles firing up. Inhale, lift the chest, lift the skull, and squeeze shoulder blades back. Lean over the leg a little as you do that pressing down. So you're not pushing with your hands, you're pressing down with the leg itself. Any discomfort in that left hip, because it's still early in the practice, go ahead and move that a little bit further back if it's getting uncomfortable. Inhale, pass the knees back through centers. Maybe you're using your hands. Exhale, send the legs over to the left. Hands come either side of that left thigh. Inhale, lift chest. Exhale, push down through your left leg and then begin to lean over your left thigh. Not looking for your deepest possible forward bend, looking to awaken the muscles in that left leg to make things a bit more active, to warm up the joints and prepare the body for a bit more movement later. So I'm a big fan of preparing for stuff. Inhale, bring your knees back up through center. So at the minute, legs are about a 90-degree bend. Go ahead and straighten them so they are still in that same angle, but they're very slightly bent. You'll probably need to, as you're working the legs straighter, it's probably going to pull you into a wee bit of a scoop, so you're welcome to use hands behind you. For this one, there's going to be less availability to turn, so there should be less height change between the sit bones. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, send both legs to the right, so you're rotating the right thigh out, rotating the left thigh in, but still aiming that it is more straddly. Take the hands over towards your right thigh. So it's not the same 90-degree twist you did earlier, it's probably about 45 degrees. Rotate that right thigh outwards enough that you feel that the pinky edge of that right foot is pressing down, and then begin to lean forwards over that leg. If you're really tight in the back, use your hands behind you to assist with that press, and aiming that this isn't a rounded or flopping pose, but instead it's active and lengthening. Almost aiming that you get your breastbone coming down towards your ankle. So the purpose of this is to get quite a lot of sensation to the outside of the leg. So if you're getting any tug towards the outside of the knee, it's a wee bit IT bandy. Also getting in just underneath that. Inhale, bring yourself back through center, so probably using hands behind. Exhale, rotate the legs over to the left. Actively rotate that left thigh out, right thigh is coming in, and then set the hands either side of that left leg and begin to fold in that direction. Instead of tucking the chin and rounding, inhale to lift up through your low front ribs, lengthening the chest towards your left heel. Exhale, draw shoulder blades down and lengthen the neck. Use deep breathing. So early on, we're trying to work with those foundations rather than trying to go any further with that. Inhale, bring your knees through center. If you feel like you're curling under at all, I recommend that you grab your block and just sort of wedge that under your hips for now, just so you can access the sort of next piece a little easier. If you take your fingertips to the tops of your knees and kind of have those pointing straight up, and then go down 90 degrees to the inside of your knee, so kind of the inner seam of your garment. If you're wearing seamless materials, I don't know how you can comprehend such witchcraft. Hook your fingers in and just start to pull upwards, probably about a centimetre below the line of the seam, just pulling up into this stuff. This is some of the areas these are some of the areas rather that when you're in Baddha will be pulling really tight, but also in Straddle are really restrictive. You should be able to feel like a line of muscle all the way down your inner thighs, all the way down to where it gets a little bit gnarly. Essentially what you're doing is hooking with your fingers underneath it and pulling it upwards towards the top of your leg. Just doing a little bit of a release on these areas. They are notoriously challenging to stretch. I think a lot of yoga practices, and forest yoga also guilty of this, likes to assume that flexibility in this area without actively pursuing it, or really giving huge numbers of tools to get into this. So we're going to look at this area specifically today to help with that. Okay, come back down off of the block. Rebend those legs a little bit. Use your hands behind you. Deep breath in. Today is all about straddle. Exhale, send your legs over to the right. So legs are going over to the side. Use your left hand. This is going to be more IT bandy. and roll the tissue of your left leg inwards so you feel it's bringing your thigh around the corner. So you're going to press to roll the meat of your leg, for want of a better word, inwards whilst palming all the way down towards your knee itself. It might feel a bit spicy. If so, I recommend that you tennis ball the heck out of all that stuff. Alright, use your hands behind you. Inhale, bring your knees up through center. So hoping you're kind of palming up and down the leg. Exhale, send the knees over to the left. Right hand is assisting you to help turn your right thigh inwards and using your hand to assist. So I'm trying to do it in slow motion so you can see that it's a rolling inwards action and rolling inwards. So all areas that can really start to affect your ability to sit in straddle, all these different parts. So whether that is standing straddle, seated, handstandy straddles, all of these creatures. Inhale, bring yourself back through center. Legs are bent, toes point up. Use your fingertips behind you. Inhale up onto your sit bones. Exhale, tuck your chin and lift the skull. So all you're doing is just kind of reining your neck in to build that lifting up posture. Now some of you might be able to press to lean forwards a wee bit more. Maybe bringing the hands forwards to the insides without rounding your back. It's early for this. So if it's making you super grumpy, like, ugh, he said it's a whole class of straddles. When can I disconnect? Don't disconnect. Inhale, bring yourself up. Go ahead and straighten the legs. With the legs straight, you might need to still have hands behind you to give you that support. Press down so you feel your heels lift and then flex your feet. Pin the heels to the ground and then reach the ball of the foot away so you're getting this like pulling action with the lever of foot flex to point to give you a little bit of extra space. Alright, so this pose in Sanskrit is called Sama Konasana, same angle. And I like to think that it's in the same family as one of a familiar name called Baddha Konasana, where we've already been. And a lot of the things that are tight on the inner thighs will affect your ability in Baddha Konasana, but the bent-legged option is usually easier to navigate. So, if sitting in straddle already feels like the worst thing that's ever happened, then work in Baddha Konasana, which might be a more open Baddha with the feet further forwards, it might be tighter Baddha with the feet closer, or in straddle. So make a choice. Ideally, it is somewhere that you can sit without your hands behind you holding yourself up, because you're going to be doing side bends. Alright, so just make a sensible and informed decision to either straddle or Baddha Konasana. Take the right hand out to the right, fingertips are about 1.5 feet outside the line of your right hip. Inhale, bring the left arm up. Exhale, wrap left shoulder blade towards the underarm, palm faces the right side of the room, and then lean to the right. Anchor down through the left sit bone, but stay in the side bend. Soles of the feet together, folks. My Baddha Konasana people, press the feet into each other. Straddle people, reach out through the ball of the foot. Inhale, lift left side ribs without lifting the pelvis. Exhale, pull belly muscles in. Use Ujjayi breathing to create that opening sensation down through the back into the ribs. And if you need a wee bit more support behind you, that right hand can always spider itself back a little bit to provide some support so long as it doesn't feel like you're twisting too much. Stage 2, exhale, reach your left hand to the left and down so the hand is lower than the shoulder for neck release. Actively reach with that arm and allow right ear to soften towards right shoulder, purposefully going after a stretch in the left side of your neck. Whether that is angling the chin down, working a little bit more neutral, or lengthening the chin up. Wherever you are choosing to work the neck stretch, switch your deep breathing on. Working with your neck relaxed, inhale to reach with that left arm. Use the right hand on the side of your head and then lift your head up. Straddle people, turn to face your right leg. Baddha Konasana people, you're turning to face your right leg, and there's a few more hand options. You might find that using the hands behind you feels better. You might find that one arm in, one arm out works better. You're going to be doing essentially the same lean. Straddle people, you might find the same thing. Inhale, lift up through your right side low ribs and breastbone. Exhale, fold in the direction of the right knee, aiming that the collarbones are facing down rather than twisted. So either seated straddle forward bend over one leg or Baddha Konasana forward bend towards the thigh. Whichever version you're doing, go ahead and anchor your left sit bone down. Stay here, but exhale through the mouth until you're empty. Do a slight hold in your breath, then a very long inhale to lift the low ribs away from your abdomen, the breastbone pulling away from your low ribs, and the skull lengthening away from the mid ribs. Inhale, bring yourself up. So straddle or Baddha Konasana. If you're in straddle but you're counting down the moments that you're in it, maybe do Baddha Konasana for this side. If it still feels okay, then in straddle just refresh that active reach out. If you're sitting in your maximum straddle, like you're trying to push box splits as like the second pose of the class, tone it down and bring it in a little bit. Take the left hand outside the left hip about 1.5 feet. Inhale, bring the right arm up. Exhale, wrap right shoulder blade towards the underarm and then flatten your left palm. So do this as side bend before we do any twists or forward bends. So this side bend is as if you had your back against the wall. Your pelvis would be against the wall, both shoulder blades would be against the wall, and your skull. Your left shoulder, slide it down without jamming it down. Inhale, lift right side ribs up. Exhale, pull belly muscles in, feet active. So a big part of straddle, whether it's standing pose, balance pose, seated pose, is this connection in the legs, this connection down to the feet themselves. So regardless of the iteration, whether it's Baddha Konasana or Sama Konasana, get the feet really vibrant. Stage 2, exhale, reach your right hand to the right and down so the hand is lower than the shoulder for neck release. Relax the left ear towards the left shoulder and be willing to explore where needs the stretch right now. Maybe the chin down, maybe the chin up, and maybe somewhere different to the previous side. Once you've found that area, switch your deep breathing on. Working with your neck relaxed, inhale to reach with that right arm. Use the left hand on the side of your head, bring your head up. Turn towards your left thigh. Inhale, lift the ribs up. Maybe you're using your hands behind you. Exhale, fold in the direction of that left knee. So it may not be a great big huge movement at this point. What I do want you to do is register what poses we're doing. So like, what are these straddle poses? And especially if you are a little bit more experienced, you might already know some of the different ways that straddle will make the same shapes in different planes. So maybe in standing, what would this be if it was a standing pose? What would the pose be? Well, personally, I like to spot patterns like that. And I think if I'm watching TV programs, it drives Alan slowly insane that I'm making those kind of connections. But I think it's fine in a yoga practice. Stay here, but exhale through the mouth. Very slight holding of the breath to help you get that initial lift in the ribs. And then slowly inhale to telescope your ribs, creating an unfurling into the upper back and the neck. Inhale, bring yourself up. All right, now straddle or Baddha Konasana. Use your hands behind you. Don't lift your butt. Instead, feel for tilting the pelvis. Your aim is to go from kind of scooped under to neutral to starting to tip the pelvis forward and start to lean forwards in Baddha Kon. So it doesn't mean chin. Rein the chin in and lean forwards and explore what this pose is. If you're in a really tight Baddha Konasana and you feel like the only movement is in the mid and upper back, take the feet further forward, see if that gives you the purchase to move your pelvis a little bit. If not, don't worry, we kind of have the whole class to navigate that. So these can be super frustrating poses. Inhale, bring yourself up. Use your hands to assist, bring your legs so they are straight forwards and give them a little bit of a roll in and out, especially if you're not used to, especially that much straddle at the start of practice. For the next part, we're talking like right at the start that like not being covetous of a pose. For example, like lotus for some reason is like the thing everybody tries to do to represent being semi-decent at yoga. It really doesn't mean anything. So in the next pose, if it is more comfortable and you're able to move without being in pain, that your foot is to the inner thigh and not even at your thighs, at your knee, grand. Some of you will be working with the foot up closer. Oh hey, it's a half Baddha Konasana. Some of you will do this in half lotus if it feels comfortable and so long as there isn't a ridiculous amount of pressure on this left leg, the straight one. So go ahead and straighten your legs forwards. The left leg is staying straight. Bring the right foot in, either for Janushirasana, foot towards the inner thigh. Feel free to open that out if the hips feel tight or it feels better that there's less pressure. More flexible day, you're welcome to bring it up into half lotus. Certainly don't force anything. It ain't worth it. Do a wee cheat here. Put your hands down, lift your bum up and put it back down. So this, don't do any like butt meat pulling because that's very strange as a thing and don't dare do it in public. Reach the left ball of the foot forwards. You're doing that flex point to get the pull. Inhale, lift the rib cage up. Exhale, fold forwards over the legs, using the hands behind you, perhaps taking the hands forwards, perhaps taking a hold of the foot. So if you're able to touch the foot and touching it is the gesture that's happening, but it's not mechanically adding anything, put your hands on the floor and pull with them. If you're able to get a grip on your foot, push the left ball of the foot forwards. So it'll help draw you into it, but also provide resistance to pull with your arms. Inhale, press down through your left leg. Exhale, squeeze your left leg towards your left hip. So you're thinking about that entire left thigh pulling back as your chest is going forwards, just to create a little extra bit of tension and a little extra bit of sensation. Inhale, release the leg, bring yourself up, change legs. Left foot is coming in, either into an open Janushirasana, a tighter-ish Janushirasana, or half lotus, if that feels comfortable to do so. So just see what feels relevant. If you're doing half lotus and the knee is upright, it will probably start to feel like it's rounding a wee bit, so less of that. Pick your butt up, put it back down. So this should just help you feel like you're getting on your sit bones without pulling any padding away from there. Inhale, lift up. So your aim is to move from this sort of rounded position using your arms to get yourself lifted. This is already a forward bend. As your flexibility permits, maybe starting to press forwards. Also, hands can come forwards, and if you're able to grab the foot, you're welcome to grab a hold of that right foot. If you're getting a hold of the foot, instead of just trying to reach the foot, pull with the arms, use your lats to scoop the chest up, and then press the ball of the foot forwards. It can create a huge difference in the depth of the forward bend with that lever. Fellas in particular, if your foot is sickling, it's probably the inner arch pulling up towards the inside of the knee. Reach out with the inner arch of the foot so your kneecap is pointing straight up rather than its usual slight turn out that likes to happen. So just remain vigilant with that. Inhale, bring yourself up from there. And to really get into this hip stuff, I'm a big fan of controlled articulated range for hips before we even do the core work. You have the option of doing this with a block if you wish. If you don't have a block or you're using a book, feel free to do this without, but be very aware that the aim is to maintain some tension in the leg. And we'll be doing a few in one direction, a few in the other. Come onto all fours. If you're using a block, go ahead and wedge it on the longest setting between your left heel and your left sit bone, and then lift that leg so the thigh is coming up parallel to the mat. Wrist sensitive, you're welcome to do this down on your elbows. If you're working with actually regardless of whether you're working with the block or not, tendency is when the leg lifts that the lower back collapses, draw in through the abdomen and lift the leg up. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bring that left knee straight down under the hip without moving your pelvis. Inhale, open the left knee out to the left without lifting the left buttock. Exhale, reach the leg towards the back of the room and rotate it back to the start position. Deep breath in. Exhale, bring the knee downwards. Inhale, open that left knee out to the left. Exhale, reach the leg towards the back of the room, rotating back around to center. Now we're doing the reverse. Deep breath in. Exhale, rotate out to the side and then bring the knee down under the hip. Inhale, bring the leg straight back up to the start position. Exhale, rotate out to the right without lifting the right buttock, bringing the knee down under the hip. Inhale, send the leg up and back. All right, change sides. So your aim is to get really clear on flexing the hip, all the different rotations and the actions of the legs, which will be useful. So changing to the other side, lift that right leg up. Take care that as you lift the leg, it isn't a hinging in the lower back. Draw in through there, level the hips. It pays down when we look at what's going on, and lift between the shoulders. Deep breath in. Exhale, bring the right knee down. Inhale, open the right knee out to the right. Exhale, reach the leg back, rotating the thigh back through center. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bring the knee downwards. Inhale, open that right knee out to the right. Exhale, reach the leg back, rotating through center. Now the reverse. Deep breath in. Exhale, rotate out to the side and bring the knee under the hip. Inhale, send that leg up and back. Exhale, rotate out to the right. Bring it down under the hip. Inhale, send the leg up and back. Good. Release the leg down. Part of the work that I was saying at the start, like that sort of like silk filament, there is asteya, which is truthfulness. So as you do this next part, just be very truthful with yourself. If the front bones of your pelvis don't feel like they're level on the mat, it's because they're not level on the mat. And then you make your decisions based on that. And that will be maybe putting a block under there or a blanket under there so the pelvis feels a little bit more level, so that you're actually getting into the place that we're looking to get into with this. I do this one closer to the left-hand side of my mat. You're coming down into a low cobra variation before we do the core work. So to just show you quickly, the low cobra is going to be low on the elbows and with the knee straight out to the side at 90 degrees, so the knee is in line with the hip and leg bent 90 degrees. Now if I'm tightening the hips, this is going to lift up the side that we're working on. And you might find that putting something underneath the left thigh rather than the pelvis, the thigh will be more comfortable, it's easier to be level here and to do that work of scooping the chest forwards and directing the weight into the right side. Whereas if it's super tight, you'll be collapsed onto that left side and left elbow massively. So come on down. I'm over on the left side of my mat so that my right knee is padded. There's no need to aggravate the knee itself. If elbows under shoulders feels like it's too strong of a back bend for now, then this can go as far forward as necessary, just like any low cobra can. So see what feels good. I've got left toes tucked so that I can do a wee bit of a pull on that to pull everything towards the back of the mat. Inhale, lean the weight towards the right side of your pelvis. And this is where you need to do that honesty check-in. Does it feel evenly distributed from left to right? Obviously, there's going to be some room for change because your right leg is doing something phenomenally different to what the left is, but you may need to somewhat pad the left thigh to help with that height change. Inhale, lift up through the skull, pull with your arms. Exhale, use your left foot to help pull you to the back of the room and do a little bit of tuck tailbone down. So it's not like a death squeeze in your butt, it's just a little something something to help get into that inner thigh. As your flexibility dictates, you might find that you are able to bring yourself in a little bit more, just challenging the back bend a little bit. Now our aim, obviously, with lots of straddle poses, we're not going to be doing masses of back bend, so don't feel like you need to go massively far into the back bend realm. Inhale, lower down. Release that leg from where it is. Swap yourself over to the right hand side of your mat. And then open the left leg out to the left. Allow yourself to observe the differences from one side to the other. So this might be a very different ball game. Also check, have you kind of brought your left side of pelvis towards your left ribs, even though it's level? Can you also level out through the lower back? Right toes tucking just helps give a little bit of traction out to that right thigh. Pull with the arms to lengthen the ribs forwards. Breathe in a way that exaggerates the swell of movement into the abdomen, using abdominal pressure as a way to start to sense deeper into your hips and the lower back. I'm using my arms to help press more weight over to the left so I can target a little bit more passive opening into that left thigh. So these poses would normally occur in forest yoga, just not necessarily at this point. I think they're useful if we're going to be doing some of these other poses for reference later. Inhale, lower down, bring that left leg back around, and then use your arms to bring yourself up. Swing your legs around. You are coming down onto your back for abdominals. First abdominal is elbow to knee, and then probably predictably, straddle lifting through. With straddle lifting through, there are a couple of different ways to work this. The one I'm looking for today is a little bit more rotated. So you will be doing initially elbow to knee, which is like leg extensions only. Then frog lifting through, so we're getting that inner thigh focus. And then when you move into straddle lifting through, we're not just doing a straightening of the legs. You will be, but there'll be something else. Your aim is to then rotate the thighs and start to point, so the foot is actually almost pretty much pointing down rather than towards the back, which is the orientation that it was in a moment ago. So straddle lifting through becomes a different beastie. If you're doing this in legs bent, then you are welcome to actually work this in a more rotated position. It's essentially like a dead bug curl if you need to work this with legs bent. Have your roll or your block nearby for bridge as well. Come then onto your back, clasp your hands behind your head, and bring the elbows in close to the sides of your head. Lift your head and shoulders up. Feel for the space at your shoulder blades lifting off the mat, but without completely pushing your lower back down. That isn't necessary. Take a deep breath in. Hold your breath. Curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows towards your left leg. Right leg straightens. Pull belly down. Inhale, bend your leg. Shoulders come back through center. Hold your breath. Curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows to the right leg. Left leg straightens. Pull belly down. Inhale, bend legs. Bring your shoulders to center. Hold your breath. Curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows left. Right leg straightens as if you were pushing the right ball of the foot into a wall. Then pull belly down. Inhale, bend legs. Hold your breath, curl tailbone up, exhale, reach elbows to right leg, left leg straightens, pull belly down. Inhale, bend leg, shoulders come to center. Hold your breath, curl tailbone up, exhale, reach elbows left, right leg straightens, pull belly down. Inhale, bend your legs, bring the shoulders back through center. Hold your breath in, curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows right, left leg straightens, actively reach out through that thigh, pull belly down. Inhale, bend legs. Hold your breath, curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows left, right leg straightens, pause. Curl tailbone a little bit more, pull abdomen down. Inhale, bend legs, shoulders to center. Hold your breath, curl tailbone up. Exhale, reach elbows to right leg, left leg straightens, pull abdomen down. Inhale, bend legs, set your head down, set your feet down. If your hips and back need more support for frog lifting through or straddle lifting through, you're welcome to work either of these poses with the feet on the wall, obviously wall space depending. Bring the knees up so the knees are above your hips. Clasp your hands behind your head and then lift the head and shoulders up. The head and shoulders stay up throughout this abdominal. Open the knees wide so the inner thighs face the ceiling. Toes are pointing and rotating towards the sides of the room. Use your buttock muscles to help widen the angle of the knees. Pelvis is down. Do an experimental curl up of tailbone, which shouldn't necessarily be done by swinging your legs. So if your pelvis is lifting because you're doing a leg swing, isolate it so the pelvis is curling up without the need to swing the legs. Take a deep breath in, press pelvis down. Exhale, curl tailbone up, curl head and shoulders up, pull abdomen down. Pelvis is the only part that moves next. Inhale, relax the tuck and tailbone, press pelvis down. Exhale, curl tailbone up, reach the thighs away from pelvis, actively widening the knees. Pull abdomen down. Inhale, uncurl tailbone, lift shoulder blades up. Exhale, curl tailbone up, point the toes towards the ground, actively widen the knees, pull belly down. Inhale, relax the curl and tailbone. Begin to send the soles of the feet up, so your knees will start to come in a little bit closer to your underarms. Some of you will start to work that towards straddle, where you're pointing the toes down towards the floor. Take a deep breath in, press down through pelvis. Exhale, curl tailbone up, reach thighs away from pelvis, lift head and shoulders up, pull belly down. Inhale, relax the curl and tailbone. Exhale, curl tailbone up, lift head and shoulders up, pull belly down. Inhale, uncurl tailbone, reach out through your heels. Exhale, curl tailbone up, reach out through the thighs, pull belly down. Inhale, lay your head down. Use your hands to assist the legs back into each other rather than abandoning them, and then bend your legs. Grab your roll or your block, whichever you're using, and put it to your inner thighs on a medium width. If you're using a roll, just make sure you're holding the roll. Draw your shoulders down away from your ears, palms face up. Bridge makes for a really great pose to re-check in and set after the intensity of the abdominals. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, press into your feet, curl tailbone up, squeeze the roll or the block, and then lift up. Once you're up, relax your shoulders and the upper back and make this a way to connect to the strength of your legs and the dependability there. Now, if you have learned how to do this pose using your shoulders, that's fine. There's a time and a place, and it's not right now. So relax through your shoulders. Also, apologies if you can hear the seagull that is evidently laughing down our chimney. It has nothing to do with me, and I am not its friend. Take another deep breath in. Exhale, lower down through your shoulders, mid-back, low back, and then set your pelvis down. Remove the roll of the block, set it to the side, take yourself and roll to your left, and then bring yourself up from the ground. Okay, before we come into dolphin, I've been factoring lunges in at the start of my practice. We're just going to get a couple of lunges in before we do some dolphin work. Start from all fours. You won't be there for very long, so don't worry so much about padding. Step the left foot from tabletop in front of your left hand. So slightly to the outside of, but also slightly in front of. And then walk your hands in line with the foot. As you start to lower your hips, scoop your rib cage forwards, scooping your skull forwards. So you get that unfurl like we had at the start. Level the hips by putting a little bit more weight, or at least lining up the left sit bone with the left heel. Exhale, tuck tailbone down so the buttock muscles are firing up. If your head is down, look forwards but tuck the chin. So when I reincarnate as a yoga teacher next time round, I will be called Look Forwards, and I can't wait. Failing that, if I end up coming back as a woman with my gold hoop earrings, I will be Anita Arm. Wonderful yoga names. Pull with your arms and scoop your chest towards the front of the mat. If you're thinking, am I tucking my tailbone too much here? I don't think so, so go ahead, tuck tailbone more. Take a deep breath in, half split. Exhale, press back through your left leg and begin to walk your hands back. For this part, I would prefer, regardless of practice level, that you're working with your hands up on a block so you can work more with the orientation of the pelvis and the legs. Press down through the instep of the left foot. Lean your pelvis to the left, so left sit bone and left heel feel like they're in line. And then do the work of sticking your butt out. So if in doubt, stick it out. Inhale, scoop your chest towards the front of the room. Exhale, draw shoulders and shoulder blades down. So it ends up super active. Second dynamic with this left leg, as you press down into the foot and you've done that lining up work, squeeze your left heel towards your left sit bone. So pull back on that leg as you scoop the chest forwards. Lunge. Bend into your left leg, come off of the block, walk your hands forward, just simply to bring yourself back in for a moment. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, pull that left leg back. Second side. Lunge. Inhale, right foot steps in front of the line of the right hand, and then take the hands a little further forwards. Lower into your hips. Inhale, scoop your chest forwards, lift skull. Exhale, tuck tailbone down. Use that pulling in the arms to help switch on your lats and think less about what can collapse and more about what can lift, what can lengthen. So relaxed neck doesn't mean floppy neck, it doesn't mean collapse. Still active. So we're getting these lunges in so that when we hit sun salutations, the lunges are opening up and are moving dynamically, but also giving us a little bit extra work into the quadriceps, inside of that right thigh as well, for all the other straddly beasts that are coming your way. Half split. Exhale, press the hips back, walking the hands back, maybe taking the block with you, so you've got that under the hands. I prefer that. Now, the pelvis loves to do this thing where it swings over to the left, and you're thinking like, oh, this is easy. Line up your right sit bone and your right heel. So suddenly the weight feels a bit different. Press down through the inner arch of the foot, so your knee is pointing in, and line up the sit bones. Inhale, scoop chest forwards. Exhale, articulate the pelvis by pointing your butt to the back of the mat. This work in the pelvis has transformed my forward bend practice. If you're thinking like, oh, but I really love to get my face licking my knee for no reason, go ahead and do the work in the pelvis. It's way more exciting than your knee. Unless you've got a thing for knees, in which case, go for it, hun, you do you. Now with that right leg, press down and squeeze your right heel towards the back of the mat. So we're starting to contract into the hamstrings while stretching them. We're getting that additional tension. Lunge. Inhale, bend into that right leg, lower into your hips so it's a momentary touch back in, and then pull that leg back. For the next pose, there are a few different stepping stones. If you're newer to dolphin, newer to the stamina of it, so like I was saying at the start, if you're newer, you may find that the stamina to support a one-armed dolphin isn't quite there yet, and that's fair. That can be something that we build towards through successive repetitions of classes. So you'll be starting with dolphin forearms down with one leg up. Some of you will do dolphin with one arm down and the other hand coming back a little bit. So you've got like this halfway house, both arms are still on the ground. Some of you will take that other arm back to hold the foot. So the pose that we're looking for is called dolphin strut. So one arm is down, the other arm can come back halfway to assist, or with the leg lifting, taking a hold of the foot and flexing the foot. Oh, he says falling over, showing you a great example of how to fall over. And taking a hold of that and letting it be active. So it's not this limp foot that you're holding on to tenuously. Your aim is to get a flex, so we start to get into the quadriceps a little bit more, avoiding things like half virasana. As a little cheat, and this isn't going to do you any harm, but obviously some point down the line, maybe like factor out of your practice, when you are working, pardon me as I show you my backside, the leg that is lifted, so if this is my lifting leg, if you slightly warrior one the other foot, you might find that that gives you the ability to be a little bit more centered on your legs, or at least give you the grip of the entire foot on the ground. So feel free to do that. Like if I walked past you in the studio, I'd tip you a wink rather than be like, what is this leg doing? Okay, come on down onto your elbows. Feel free to remind me of that in person if I start scowling. Grab the upper arms to measure shoulder distance, and then set forearms parallel. Shoulder injured, shoulder tight, shoulder sore, even shoulder tired. Clasp the hands, you'll do the leg part, but not the arm part. Inhale, lift up the space between the shoulder blades. Exhale, squeeze chest muscles, tuck toes, lift the knees up, and set the feet a wee bit wider than your hip distance. Now you're either going to lift the left leg up, bending the leg in the air. This might be where you stay. Some of you will bring the right hand back alongside, so maybe you're on the fingertips, so you're working almost like a flash prep variation. Perhaps right hand comes up to hold on to the left ankle, making sure your head isn't becoming a weight-bearing element. So the neck is relaxed, but the left arm is really powering down. Whichever version you're doing, set the knees down, reset your forearms, especially if you're slipping around. Inhale, lift between the shoulder blades. Exhale, tuck your toes, lift your knees up. Feet are slightly wider than hip distance. Inhale, lift the right leg, bending the leg in the air. Left hand can come back halfway, maybe bringing that left arm up to take a hold of the foot so you get that flex. Firmly wrap right shoulder blade towards the underarm. So you're feeling those muscles are really connected. If it's feeling slippery or tenuous, remember you can work with both arms down and still get lots out of it. Inhale, set your knees down, and then sit up. For the next bit, you just need to make sure that you're kind of like kicking space away from like objects, like children and hobs and stuff like that. Last week we factored this in as well, where we added in a shoulder stand kind of early on in the practice. People usually see these as like really down-regulating poses that are worthy of the end of practice. I really like them to get you working out what's happening with your hips and moving through various planes. And when navigating straddle, I think it's one of the best places to work straddle. So you're going to be doing both Baddha and straddle, and here is what you're going to be doing. Shoulder stand for me is pelvis above elbows rather than pelvis above face, because breathing is fun. Starting in Baddha, so thinking instead of feet here, you're thinking soles of the feet are going up, so it's like a really neutral pelvis, and going from Baddha to straddle and back to Baddha. So you're kind of getting that like Baddha feel. Then getting a feel for what straddle feels like when the toes are pointing down versus when they're pointing up. So you can take a little bit of movement to rotate through your thighs, but also to move your pelvis. If it's a more advanced day, you need to have a really good hold of the pelvis. And you're going from feet up, turning the feet out, passing through straddle, continuing the rotation, coming inwards, he says knocking 3 things over, 4 things over, and bringing the feet together, and then opening back up, 5 things over, and bringing the feet together. So you're making circles with the feet. If it is a very advanced day and you're thinking, shoulder stand, and you want to do it in handstand, go for it. You're very welcome to do it in handstand instead. If you're thinking, I could do handstand if I want, but not today, that's fine. So shoulder stand, Baddha to straddle 5 times. Baddha to straddle 5 times in a slightly piped position, so that's where you bring it in 90 degrees. And then thinking about the straddle rotation, so you're in straddle but you're rotating the thighs and moving your pelvis, and then circles with the legs in straddle. All of these things, all of these physical actions are moves that we would then do in other inversions, in arm balances, but also as we move through standing poses. And this is a really great way to get the learning in your mind for how the legs move, how the thighs are rotating, how your pelvis and lower back are speaking before we start doing other stuff. And I sincerely hope you're knocking over less stuff than what I was knocking over. If you're doing the straddle into Baddha still, give the rotations an explore. So you're thinking what happens when you turn the toes towards the ceiling, towards the back of your mat, towards the ground. What is happening with where your pelvis is pointing. And then the circles are the other ones. You're thinking like the toes touch above your head, the toes touch up towards the ceiling, and what happens on the way during that. This will give you the kind of puzzle pieces for things like straddle up handstands, as well as simply allowing your hips to glide Alright, start to bring yourself down. Once you're down, stand up. Obviously take your time. We've gone from very low upside down to suddenly standing. You might start to feel a little bit woozy. Moving into sun salutations, have your feet about hip distance at the front of your mat. So classical sun salutations, more Iyengar based, stepping into lunges versus Surya Namaskar A, which is also sun salutation. Inhale, bring your arms up. Forward bend, exhale. Lunge, left leg steps back, set the knee down, inhale, bring your arms up. Strongly tuck your tailbone down as you bring the arms up. Plank, exhale, step back, bend the elbows, shoulders away from the ears as you lower down. Low cobra, inhale, pull with your arms, scooping your chest towards the front of the mat. Downward facing dog, exhale, tuck toes, lift knees up. Lunge, inhale, left foot steps through between the hands, right knee goes down, bring the arms up. Forward bend, exhale, step forwards, neck relaxed. Inhale, scoop your chest forwards, come all the way up towards standing. Exhale, hands together at chest. Inhale, reach up. Forward bend, exhale. Lunge, right leg steps back, knee down. Inhale, bring the arms up. Plank. Exhale, hands down, step back, bend elbows, elbows above the wrists as you lower. Low cobra. Inhale, pull with the arms, press down into your feet, rolling the pinky toes towards the mat. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Lunge. Inhale, right foot comes through, left knee down. Inhale, bring the arms up. Forward bend. Exhale, step forwards, neck relaxed. Inhale, lengthen the ribs forwards, come all the way up towards standing. Exhale, hands together at chest. Deep breath in, bring the arms up. Forward bend, exhale. Lunge, left leg steps back, knee down. Inhale, bring the arms up. Push down into your feet, feel that connection to your legs. Plank, exhale, hands down, step back, bend elbows and lower. Feel free to put the knees down if you're taking the weight out of your wrists. Low cobra. Inhale, pull with your arms, scooping the chest towards the front of the mat. Downward facing dog. Exhale, tuck toes, lift knees. Lunge. Inhale, left foot lightly steps through between your hands, bring the arms up. Forward bend. Exhale, step forwards, neck relaxed. Inhale, lift all the way up, press down into your feet. Exhale, hands together, chest. Deep breath in, strongly power down through inner ankles. Forward bend, exhale. Lunge, right leg steps back, knee down. Inhale, bring the arms up, lift ribs up. Plank. Exhale, hands down, step back, bend elbows and lower. Cobra or low cobra. So for this one, hands are under the shoulders. Inhale, pull with the arms, lengthen ribs forwards. Downward facing dog. Exhale. Lunge. Inhale, right foot steps through, left knee down, bring the arms up. Forward bend. Exhale, step forwards, neck relaxed. Shift the weight towards your heels. Inhale, scoop the chest forwards and up. Exhale, hands together, chest. Feet hip distance. Take the hands onto your hips and then fold, bringing your chest onto your thighs. Take the hands out of there and then grab a hold of the big toes. So coming into Padangusthasana. Palms are facing one another. Now, press down through the base of your big toe, lift up through the arch, but press down through the inside of your ankle. So you're not doing like a collapsed, buckling down foot. So pressing down through the base of the big toe, lifting in the arch, pressing down through the inner ankles. Inhale, scoop your chest towards the front of the mat. Exhale, bend your arms, pull with your arms to draw your ribs closer to your thigh and your skull closer to the ground. So notice it's not face to legs. If this is proving tough for your back, like mid and low back, bend your legs a ton. Use that bend to help you use your abdominals to get yourself in a little bit more. One of the things I think if there was a life lesson I could get from my forward bend practice, I wish I had bent my knees 10 years earlier rather than constantly battling with trying to straighten my legs because my pride thought it was sensible. Bend them legs. Half lift. Inhale, scoop your chest forwards. Exhale, bend your legs. So here you've got definitely bending them. And then scoop your chest all the way up towards standing. Exhale, bring hands together, chest. We haven't started the standing stuff. Have your feet hip distance. Warrior one. Step your right leg back and bend into your left leg. Now you're welcome to stay high up on that right heel or flip the heel down so the toes point to the upper right corner of your mat. Really personal preference with that. Bring the hips and shoulders forwards. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, wrap your shoulder blades towards the underarms and lift through the back of the skull. If everything's feeling really compressed or it's been a real neck shoulder kind of a day, go ahead and do this brain cradle traction where you're holding your skull and pulling it upwards away from the rest of you to help create a slight tractioning out. Alternatively, simply working with the arms up. Same dynamic we were working in the half split. Pull with your left leg to help draw you into the pose a little bit more. Standing pose series, unlike B series or flow classes, is really asking you to tap into your stamina and your fortitude. So I encourage you here, if you're starting to get really flighty, like, oh my god, I'm usually just doing 5 breaths, get steady. Like 5 is in my opinion, an incredibly limited amount of time. I don't think much happens in 5 breaths. Pyramid forward bend. Straighten your left leg, set the back heel down so it points to the front right corner of your mat, and then bring the foot in so you go about 3 feet between the feet lengthways, 1 foot between the feet widthways. Turn the pelvis forwards. Inhale, lift chest. Exhale, articulate the pelvis by tilting the pelvis, so sticking your butt out. Bringing the hands down onto the thigh, the shin, the ankle. Maybe you're recalling the work that you did in the half split and working with the block. Inhale, lengthen the ribs towards the front of the mat. Exhale, press down through the inner left ankle and pull back on that left leg. Hypermobiles, soften your knee joints. Apologies, I've got a heater on and I'm absolutely melting, so I just switched that off. I'm back, baby. So knees are soft, especially back knee has a tendency to like massively hyperextend. Go ahead and ease that out. It's when I was developing my straddle flexibility, I ended up with a lot of chronic knee pain at the time because I was really pulling too much and I was starting to produce like a hypermobility that didn't exist before. So I encourage you to wariness with that, obviously, hopefully obviously. Straddle forward bend. Discard the block, take the hands down and walk your hands around to the right. Your feet were just on 2 different lines, so go ahead and line them up so the feet are running down the same track and parallel to one another. Bend your legs a ton. Inhale, scoop your chest towards the right hand side of the mat. Exhale, fold, pointing your sit bones up towards the ceiling. Back growly. If you're getting a lot out of your hamstrings with the hands down, you don't need to go very far. Focus on trying to point your butt to the ceiling with very bent legs. The feet are not inert. If you feel like there's a lot of sensation on the outside of your shin or the outside of your calf, push down through the base of your big toe, lift your toe tips so you're not actually like pushing into an excessive range in the ankle, which is very, very possible here. Oh look, a straddle pose. one of many. Here comes another one, triangle. Turn your left foot forwards, walk your arms along to the inside of the leg, but turn the right foot in a little bit. Now your left hand can either be down underneath the shoulder or up onto the block. I would prefer a block than the hand on shin. Inhale, bring the right arm up. Inhale, lengthen your ribs towards the front of your mat. Exhale, draw shoulders and shoulder blades down. In this pose, when I do too much tucked tailbone, I feel like my low back rounds. I actually like to do a little bit of the opposite here. So I've got my left hip drawing towards the right, but I'm actually very slightly tilting the pelvis to get that draw on the inside of the thigh, that channel that we were pulling on earlier, whilst pressing down through the base of the big toe. So it allows this pose to go from a pose that usually isn't giving very much signaling at all to, well, it's certainly singing a different tune. Straddle, forward bend. Bring your hands down. Turn your left foot in, discard the block. With the hands under the shoulders, you're actually moving into flank stretch. Take the hands towards your left foot, but your aim is that the chest is still facing the left side of the mat rather than twisting on a diagonal. Take the left hand outside the left foot, right hand grabs outside the left ankle. If you can't reach the floor, put the block outside your left foot, put your hand on that. Inhale, lean your ribcage to the right. Exhale, bend your right elbow, sending right elbow and forearm down towards the floor, creating a side bend into the right side ribs. So this is a little bit more similar to the straddle over the leg that we were working earlier on. Inhale, pull with your right arm, sending the right elbow downwards. Exhale, pull belly muscles in. Relaxed neck is tricky here because if your head is on your arm, your neck is actually kind of scrunched over to the right. Very slightly angle the head to the left as you arc the rest of your spine over to the right. Inhale, bring yourself out. Triangle, turn your left foot forwards. Walk your hands towards that foot. Now, it's a triangle setup, but we're not actually doing triangle. You're coming into half moon, which is a straddle-based forward bend. It's balancing on its side. It's basically triangle, just toppled over another 90 degrees. So we're going to look for that. Right hand on the right hip. Take the left hand about 10 inches in front of your left foot. About 2 inches over to the left of that, maybe putting your hand on something. Inhale, shift the weight onto that left heel. Right toes are pointing down, roll your chest open. Once you feel like you've got your balance, the right arm can start to reach up. Inhale, lift your pelvis away from your left thigh. Exhale, reach out through your right heel and lengthen the back of your neck. Forward bend. Bring the right leg in, stepping alongside the left about hip distance, and bring the hands down. Grab a hold of your big toe, so second time in Padangustasana. If you're wrist sensitive, this is a really good one to get into. If your wrists are okay with it, come into Padahastasana, taking the palms underneath the feet. Palms are facing the soles of the feet, toes are coming up towards the wrist crease. Bend the legs enough that your low ribs touch the thighs. Inhale, scoop your ribs towards the front of the mat. Exhale, pull with your arms, bending the elbows and bringing the skull down towards the ground. Articulate the pelvis by pointing your sit bones up towards the ceiling and bringing the chest in closer to the legs. And you can feel if you're in Padahastasana, so the hands under the feet, press down through the base of the big toe, and you'll feel the pressure change on the palm massively, but it also helps you track where your feet are in relation to the pose. Inhale, release the hands from whichever one you're doing. Scoop the chest forwards and up, come up towards standing. Exhale, bring hands together at chest. Feet are already hip distance. Warrior one, step your left leg back. Bend down into that right leg, drive with your left heel. Now feel free to set that heel down if you're working warrior one with the toes pointing towards the upper left corner of your mat. Otherwise, pull with your right leg to bring yourself in. Inhale, bring the arms up. Exhale, wrap shoulder blades towards the underarms. If this feels like it needs to be more of a neck traction day, or even a low back traction, you can use your hands on your pelvis to pull to help lift the lower section of spine up away from pelvis. So really checking out your options. You might find a more restful option with the arms, like the back tractions or neck tractions, feels good because the arms aren't massively in the conversation in this standing pose series. Inhale, push into both feet. Exhale, bring the left hip forwards, the right hip back. So the dynamics that we'll be using when we access pyramid, but not yet. Take another deep breath. Pyramid, straighten the right leg, shorten the stance. If you had your heel up, go ahead and set the heel down. So it's pointing to like a 4, 5 o'clock position, and then square the hips. Also get a feel, are the hips level? So they could be potentially in so many different places here. Your aim is to feel like they're facing forwards and level-ish. Inhale, telescope ribs up. Exhale, pitch forwards, either bringing the hands to brace high in the thigh, down onto the shin, the ankle, or the floor. Inhale, line up right sit bone with right heel, lengthen chest forwards. Exhale, point your sit bones to the back of the room and then squeeze that right foot to the back of the mat, watching for any snapping of the knee into the hypermobile range. So if your knee is locked out, it's not in my movement vocabulary to say lock that, lock the joint or anything like that. I barely lock our house. That does not mean come round to this house, do not do that. There is honestly nothing worse than an uninvited visitor. Nothing in this world. If you haven't sent me a note by pigeon, do not show up. Anyway, straddle forward bend. Soften into that right leg, discard the block unless you're using it. Walk yourself around to the left. Hands are under the shoulders. Feet are about 3 feet apart, feet parallel, if not very slightly toes turning inwards. Inhale, scoop your chest towards the left side of the mat. Exhale, fold. If it's a more flexible day, fingers can line up with toes or reach the arms through the legs and pull with them. Not trying to pull your head into your own butt, but trying to actually lengthen your skull down towards the ground. So thinking less flex, more extend. It's a tool that I like to use in all of my forward bends when I'm working them. Triangle. Inhale, lift up out of there. Exhale, turn your right foot forwards. The left foot angles in a little bit more, so about like 15 degrees more, and walk the hands around to the right. Right hand can either be underneath the right shoulder, can be up onto the ankle. If it's on the shin, I think that's a better range to be applied to a block. Inhale, reach up through your left arm. Exhale, draw your right sit bone towards your left. And instead of doing the action of tuck tailbone, very slightly stick your butt out and see what that does to the sensation to the inside of the right leg. Inhale, push down through the inside of your right foot. Exhale, draw shoulder blades down. Both sides of the ribs are long rather than compressing on one side. Straddle forward bend, setting up for flank stretch. Bring the hands down, turn the right foot in, check that left foot so you're turning it in also. Take both hands towards your right foot. Left hand grabs outside the right ankle.
Right hand is on the floor outside the right foot. Inhale, lean your ribs to the left. Exhale, pull with your left arm, sending the left elbow down towards the ground, and push with your right hand. So you're using it to help push your rib cage over to the left whilst pulling with the arm. So there's a huge amount of tension on that left side of the ribs. Switch on deep breathing. If possible, feel for that little extra bit of tilt in the pelvis. You're pointing your butt towards the ceiling, and the legs can be bent here. Triangle into half moon. Inhale, turn your right foot forwards. So reassemble that triangle, then right hand is coming out in front of the right foot or offsetting it towards the right. If you want to keep it in line with your foot, the balance point is a little bit more precarious. If your hip appreciates the space, go ahead and put the block outside the right foot. Inhale, shift the weight onto that right leg, lifting to turn your chest to the left. Inhale, drive your left heel towards the back of the mat. Exhale, feel for lifting your pelvis up away from your right thigh. So I do that via a little bit of tucked tailbone, but also engaging into the right buttock muscles, and a very slight action of, without any visible movement in the foot, so it's an isometric contraction, of the right heel spinning towards the left side of the mat. It gives me a wee bit extra substance in that hip. Take a deep breath in. Forward bend. Step that left foot alongside the right, hang down over the legs, and then bend your legs and sit down. So it may have been more of a collapse, but if you still landed somewhere near your butt, technically you sat down. There are a few iterations of the next pose. If seated forward bends look more like this, or you feel like actually your pelvis is curled under and your lower back is going back, and the only thing going forward is your arms and your hopes and dreams, then I recommend that you do these on your back because it will help you lengthen out your back. And it will feel more like dead bug, and this will give you, in dead bug actually, as you start to work towards straddle on the back, how bent your legs are there, or how bent roughly your legs are going to need to be in seated forward bends and in standing forward bends. But for some reason, whenever I'm teaching real folks, they never bend the damn legs, but they should. So you're either going to be working dead bug on the back, but holding the inside. If your pelvis starts to curl up, it's the same as your lower back rounding, so you want to think pelvis is coming down onto the ground. And then using your quadriceps to extend the legs. You want to think, like, could you do it without using your hands? Hopefully. And then certain thing, hang on, we're going to kick something. And then thinking pelvis stays down, the legs are coming down towards the floor. And if they're this bent, you better believe that's probably how bent they would need to be seated plus elevated for you to be able to navigate into the pose. So, if you're thinking, well, I think I'm on my back, go onto your back. If you're doing seated straddle, go to your straddle, but not necessarily your weight. So if you just shoved yourself forwards, go shove yourself back and point the toes up. Actively reach out through the ball of the foot. Now, if you're working on your back, what I would like you to do in dead bug is do like a deep breath in, exhale, extend the left leg, inhale, bend, do 5 leg extensions, then 5 leg extensions on the other side, and then go for static and see how that feels, just so you're getting the familiarity in your legs. Seated folks, use your hands behind you. Maybe you're sitting on a block. Inhale, lift the chest. Exhale, articulate your pelvis by trying to stick your butt out and start to lean forwards. Maybe your hands are coming forwards. If you're on the back, press your pelvis towards the mat. Seated people, if your feet are rolling outwards, get the toes so they're pointing up and pin the heels to the ground. Maybe you're coming forwards and down towards the elbows. More flexible day, you're thinking not that your head is coming down, but that your low ribs are coming down. So I like to really use my arms to squeeze my shoulder blades together and work my back like cobra. So I'm like engaging between the shoulder blades and then coming down to get the chest kind of touching down into the mat. So it's active and being in that place. This is what I like to do. I also had to spend
about 2 years having every meal, breakfast, lunch and dinner, in straddle with my feet kind of hooked into the coffee table and sitting like this all the time for it to finally normalize in my body, because this was not a natural position that my body wanted to be in. Oh heck no. Alright, seated straddles. Inhale, bring yourself up. If you're on your back, it is not Shavasana. Roll to one side, bring yourself up. Nice try. You are coming into 2 different variations of the same pose. We're revisiting a pose from earlier. So you're coming into frog belly down. This can be quite fiery on the knees. So if I strongly recommend that you're working with more padding. I'm going to be folding my mat numerous times. If you're doing the bent-legged version and you feel like your hips still have a little bit left to give, you're going to play with some pretty challenging internal rotations. I find they really help me navigate deeper into the pose. Some of you are going to work this in like the Samakhanasana split version. So if you are sitting just now, go ahead and either roll or fold your butt up lengthways, because you're going to need it. I realize I've now made my mat invisible against the mat that is underneath. So you are either going to be in frog belly down, taking the knees wide, and I'm kind of moving one at a time and slowly. A lot of folks have their pelvis in front of their knees with this. You're going to be working your pelvis in line with your knees and coming down onto the elbows. Now the rotations would be looking at one foot and aiming, without lifting your butt, to lift the foot up. So you're doing little internal rotations, about 5 and 5, and then just being static. So that is frog belly down. If you are having a more flexible day, or you've been working the straddle part, then you're taking the flexed inner arch of the foot down and taking that wide on the mat and aiming that the pelvis is in line with the knees as you come down, and then coming down onto the chest. So you're seeing which one feels like your navigable pose for today. If you wish, you're welcome to take a block or a roll under your abdomen for some support. That can feel really good. We're going to be here for a little bit. So if you're in frog belly down, have a look towards your left foot. And on the exhale, your aim is to lift the inner ankle off the floor and then inhale to release it down. So any movement is great. It might feel somewhat blocked, but your aim is to feel like you can get a viable rotation without wiggling your pelvis from side to side to create it. When you're done with the 5 on one side, do the 5 on the right. I find it really useful to watch these so I can calculate what's happening and hopefully guide what is happening a bit more. If you're just articulating your ankle, it is not the same as initiating this from the hip joint. Now you might find after those rotations that there's a little bit of easing happening. Maybe the knees can go a little wider, maybe not. I used to have this teacher, and every exhale she would be cueing, go further, exhale, see if you can go a bit further, exhale, go further. And that was never what my rate of release was. It was like 25 years later, it might relax, not like a breath every time. So allow yourself to be aware enough of what your organic rate of release is, but also being aware if you are holding tension for safety, or if you can relax a little bit more. Obviously don't do anything that is going to compromise anything that needs to be protected. Tentatively, the best way out of this is to roll onto your abdomen. So obviously, depending on what your room setup is, roll onto your abdomen. Use your arms, bring yourself up. Scrape back what is left of your little leggy poos. And unroll your yoga mat. Now, sometimes at the end of class, I would say, do legs up the wall Shavasana. That's fine if you want to do that. Avoid doing straddle legs up the wall. Otherwise, you might be trapped there for the rest of time. And we'll find you as a very wide leg, very confusing fossil in the future. So either lay down, choosing a comfortable rest position. If you wish to do legs up the wall, I would put a strap around your ankles to stop the feet from sliding away from each other. Otherwise, simply lay down where you are and take well-deserved rest. Begin to deepen your breath. Come back to that really expansive breath. And as you do this work of coming back into yourself, instead of compiling a list of poses and physical achievements, check in with that first thin filament of how you interacted with yourself, how you conducted yourself, how you were interacting with yourself and the immediate environment around you during your practice. And that is our foundation. Not the poses, not the breathing, that part. Begin to move your fingers and your toes. And then bend your legs, setting feet to the floor, tentatively moving those legs. Roll to one side and then use your arms to come up towards a seated position. So choosing a comfortable seat, maybe even curiously exploring what Baddha will feel like after all that thigh work. Bring your hands together at chest. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, bow forwards. Namaste.